like I feel like I've built this very slowly. And I guess 8 years is, some would see that as quick, some wouldn't. But I think my mistake was that I was such a loner in the process that I didn't build relationships with people that could have helped me scale faster in different ways. Although I'm pretty happy with being my own partner on my portfolio. Like I prefer that actually. But just this most recent multifamily deal, it's kind of opened my eyes to like, it takes me 8 years to build a portfolio of 100. And it took me 12 days to build a portfolio of, let's say it's 370 with two guys, and that's just because of relationships. So I think my mistake, or what I, would change, would be just being more open with people that are doing the same thing I'm doing instead of being so closed off.
You're listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast, where you'll hear the stories and interviews of everyday millionaires. We'll unveil their decisions, their strategies, and their current portfolio allocation. Now to your hosts, Clark Sheffield and Jace Mattinson.
Welcome back to another episode of the Millionaires Unveiled podcast. This is episode number 249. Got a great episode this week with Zach. His net worth is around $6.5 million, most of it in real estate, split between single-family homes, duplexes, and some more recent acquisitions for his portfolio in the multifamily space with himself and some partners. It's a real interesting time out there with real estate values and prices. I think we're starting to see the slowdown. Obviously, the increase in interest rates is started to cause, but definitely going to be something to pay attention to. We obviously recorded this episode with Zach before rates started drastically increasing, so maybe his portfolio has slipped a little bit. But we've not done a follow up with him to ask. So for all intents and purposes, his net worth is at $6.5 million when we recorded. Last week we had Bob. His net worth was is $3.5 million. Came to the U.S. in 1997 with only $800 in his pocket and worked his way up the corporate ladder. Pretty diversified portfolio, and all of his debt, including his real estate, is paid off. So, interesting episode with him. If you're interested in that, go check that out. It's episode number 248. Without any further delay, let's get into the episode with Zach.
Zach, do you want to just give us a little about your background and what you're up to now?
I'm a real estate investor. I live in Missouri. I started out in 2006 selling real estate. I bought my first investment property in 2013. Just kind of thought I'd try it out, and I did it. I liked it, and I just kind of kept doing it, and eventually worked myself out of a sales job and into investing full time.
Awesome. And what is your net worth today?
It's around $6.5 million.
And how is that broken up?
It's broken up into real estate and basically just cash deposits with the bank. So I've got a personal portfolio of 100 doors or so, a little over 100 doors. That's got about $3 million in equity. And then I've got a partnership with two guys on a multifamily deal here that's a couple million in equity. And then I've just got a little over $1 million in just liquid for buying real estate quickly and closing fast and remodeling properties and flipping. And so I just kind of fund that myself.
Gotcha.
So that's the breakdown.
So pretty much 100% real estate, have nothing in the market. Is that correct?
I think I have 25,000 in an IRA.
Okay.
From 5 years ago. So yeah, I have nothing in the market. Yeah.
And then do you rent or own a home?
Yeah, I own a home.
And do you have equity in that as well?
Yeah, I've got a couple 100,000. It's worth about $625.
Okay.
I owe about $380, something like that.
Okay. So let's back up here a little bit. You said you started investing 10, 12 years ago almost, or I guess a little less. How did all this get started? Obviously, you started out as an agent. At what point did you decide to make the move and the switch to be an investor in real estate, and then move on from essentially being an agent full time?
Yeah, so I started selling real estate 15 years ago, basically when the recession had started. And so I was working as a new agent, and I was basically just hound dogging, finding good deals for investors, because they didn't care how old I was or how much experience. If I could just find a good deal for them, then they would buy it and I would make my quick check. And so I was around a lot of investors. I was in all those properties, and I learned it very well, but I just didn't have any money at the time, and I really didn't know how it worked on their end. I knew how it worked on my end, but all these guys were, they were wealthy, and they were like, everybody was having a hard time during the recession, but they were not having a hard time. And so I just always thought, man, I need to try to figure out what they're doing. And so I kept selling real estate, eventually became sort of a top producer here in this area. I was making a lot of money, but I was working a lot, kind of hit burnout after around, I don't know, 7 years. But I had paid off my wife's college debt, credit cards. We paid off our cars. We got ourselves in really a great position to start stacking up money and just saving it. And so as I started doing that, I thought, well, I'm going to buy an investment property and just kind of get some of that money working for me. And so I did, and I was nervous and all of that, right? Like normal emotions that everybody has. But after about 2 or 3 months of like owning that first one, I was making about $350 a month, and the account started building up, and I just kind of got addicted to the idea of, initially it was like, if I could make enough cash flow to pay for my mortgage, I would be really, really happy. And so I just kind of focused on little goals like that. And then I kept hitting them. And then I just started getting more addicted to the whole process, and I just, so I guess it was 7 years ago, or 8 years ago, I bought my first house. And then after that, I was just like, I want to invest. I don't want to sell real estate. But they worked hand in hand together, because I started my Guy That Buys Homes business, and I marketed to the agents because I had relationships with them. I was one of them. We did deals together all the time, so I had, we had relationships. And so I marketed to the agents, call me first if you get a crappy house or duplex or package of houses or multifamily. And I just started hammering that away every week, marketing to them. And that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at, which is, I basically just manage my portfolio, buy and sell stuff, flip stuff. And I still sell a little bit of real estate, but it's basically fizzled out to almost nothing
basically
at this
nothing.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So allocation wise, 6.5 million net worth, 3 million in personal real estate, which is about 100 doors, 2 million in a partnership, which is also real estate, and then about 1 million liquid plus whatever in the house and anything else.
Exactly. Yep.
So what did you do with your money before you started investing in real estate? I know you don't have much in the stock market now. Did you used to invest in the stock market, or were you just holding cash thinking at some point I will invest in real estate?
Yeah, I was basically just focused on not investing. I was focused on just like paying my wife's college, that debt off. I was focused on paying some credit cards that she had, paying, we had some car loans. I paid those off. So that's kind of where I was focused. And I didn't start making like serious money until about 2 years. So about 9 years ago. And so when that started happening, that's when I started going, okay, I'm going to start buying houses. And I didn't know anything then about the burring properties, and buying them and renovating them and then having no money in the end. I was just buying a house, putting, 15% down and then paying for the remodel, buying a house, putting 15% down. And I did that 11 times. And so I got to this point where I'm like, geez, I can't keep buying, putting 15,000 down on every house if I'm going to buy one a month, it just like got. And so that's when I started learning about credit lines and borrowing differently. So, but before that, no, I didn't have any retirement. I was just paying debt off, and then just saving up money.
How did it start, Zach? You mentioned, hey, I don't want to sell anymore. I want to buy real estate. Was there a moment or a conversation or something that happened where you said, hey, I'm going to make this switch and I'm going to start buying real estate for myself?
Yeah, it was like basically 8 years ago, because I was finding deals for all my clients. Like I would find an off-market fantastic deal, and I would call my investor, and I would make 6% on 50,000. And it just kind of hit me like, I have the money, like I have the ability to buy these. I have the ability to to remodel them. I mean, I know the right people. I know what they're worth. Like I can give up a 6% commission if I'm going to make $30,000 in 3 months. And so I just did one and it worked. And then I did another one and it worked. And initially I was flipping quite a few. I would say about 6 months in, I just decided I was going to start holding everything if it made sense as a rental, because I was just super burned out on selling real estate.
Well, how did you start selling in the first place?
I just had like my old high school buddy. I was 24 at the time when I got my sales license, and I thought that you got it and then you would go like make a salary. Like I didn't actually know it was all commission until after I got my license. But it was my best friend at the time. His dad just encouraged me to get it. He said, just get it. I think you could do good at it. I always had sales jobs. I didn't go to college and I barely graduated high school. And so, at that point, it was just like, I'm working at the car wash. I'm working at O'Reilly's, the auto parts store. I'm just kind of like bouncing around from job to job, making really no money. And luckily, my best friend's dad, he was a successful guy. He was in commercial real estate, other stuff. And he's like, why don't you just try it and go do it? I think you could. And so I did. And I immediately went and worked for a discount brokerage, a franchise. And I worked there for the first 5 years. But that's where I kind of hit burnout because I was selling a ton of houses, but I was just not making much money. And I just kind of started thinking, man, maybe this isn't for me. And so I moved from the discount brokerage into the traditional, the 6% type deal. And that's when I started really experiencing the significant, so I get a pay raise and I just started selling more real estate. Once I started getting paid more, it kind of motivated me. But again, I go back.
So how much were you getting paid? How much did you get paid when you sold a house?
It was like basically $1,200 is what it would average out. So I was selling like 60 houses a year, and a high percentage of those were buyers, which are more labor intensive. And so, I'm making 50, 60 grand a year basically versus making like 150 to 250 if I were charging more commission. But I was also really young. And so I don't know, it was okay. It got me doing deals, it got me learning the business. So I look back and I'm like, well, it served a purpose, I don't really regret it or anything. I got a lot of experience in a short period of time, but I was happy to get away from that for sure.
So all the real estate that you own now, Zach, do you self-manage that or do you have somebody else do that?
I have somebody else that does it now. So I did it up until I stopped when I had around 50 units. So it got to where you're having just too many. People are always moving in and moving out. And at that point, it just became too difficult between my sales business. So, yeah, I've had the same person for about 3 years. She manages my entire personal portfolio. And then I have a different management company that does our multifamily.
So, Zach, where do you go from here in your real estate investing journey? You're trying to get a certain amount of doors or net worth or passive income, or what's the outlook there?
Yeah. I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I'm trying to figure that out. I think, I want to get to around 50,000 a month in cash flow. That's like my short-term goal. Like that's where I want to get pretty quick. And at that point, I might switch gears and start going into more of like a debt snowball type deal. I've always been fascinated with trying to do something like that with my whole portfolio, but then I'm like, well, it's doing its job, so it's like, why would I want to, pay everything down if it's performing like it's supposed to, so I don't know where I'm going to go next. I'm trying to figure that out, to be honest with you.
Obviously you moved into a little bit of the multifamily space. Are all the ones that you own personally, are those mainly single family?
What I own is basically, so I've got a little over 100 doors and about 30 to 35 of those are duplexes in just different areas of where I live here. And then there's a 9 unit, a 4 unit, and then the rest are single families.
Okay, so pretty substantial portion of single family. That's that's a lot to manage, right?
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
And what's the typical leverage ratio that you look for when you're acquiring? Obviously, it changes as properties have increased in value over the last several years. But typically, when you're looking at buying something, what kind of leverage are you looking to put on something that you're buying personally?
Hmm. I like for simple numbers, if it's worth 100,000, I like to be all in for about 75,000. And then in an ideal world, I have none of my own money in it. And then I can spin off some cash flow of like maybe 300 to 400 a month. That's like an ideal thing, but some of them are much better than that. And then, some of them are not quite there, but I'm pretty picky. I mean, I only buy very undervalued, distressed real estate, and then we remodel it and rent it. And so I just have not creeped my prices up over time because of the market. I've just kind of dug in and looked a little harder in different places. So my portfolio is about 55% debt to value, or whatever you want to call it. Especially over the last few years, the values have just gone so crazy, which, yeah, so it's realistically, it's probably, 55%, 60% debt is what I have on my portfolio.
All right, let's pause the show and thank Exter for sponsoring this week's episode. At Exter, their mission is simple. They're in business to make people's daily lives easier. First, they reimagined the traditional wallet, making it easier to use and harder to lose. To them, innovation means bringing together the luxury of classic leather goods and the invention of slim technologies to create a wallet that's the best of both worlds. So what makes Exter different? Well, they've created a super slim wallet with a sleek and minimalistic design, half the size of a conventional bifold wallet. They're quick and easy card access, environmental friendly and high quality materials, and they even include a solar powered tracking device that lets you track the wallet's location from a smartphone if you're one that loses the wallet often. So they sent Jason and I some of these wallets, and they are cool. My wife and I were fighting over who got to keep it because you shake this thing and the cards just don't fall out, and there was an easy clip to get the money out. So it was really, really cool. So get up to 20% off by using code MILLIONAIRE for the summer sale at shop.exter.com/millionaire. Again, that's shop.exter.com/millionaire for up to 20% off. And thanks to Exter for sponsoring this week's episode.
And do you plan to kind of maintain that, do cash out refis on them to stay around that 50 LTV or 55 LTV?
I don't really know. I mean, that's the thing is like I want to exchange, and get some better use of that equity, because I have so much idle equity. But when I find deals kind of like this apartment complex where, one might normally think, hey, I'm going to go sell off 10 of my properties, so that I can put $1 million into the complex so we can buy it, then you don't actually, when you get right down to it, you don't have to put any money into it, And so it's actually been challenging to find things to buy, because I only buy undervalued stuff. So when you buy undervalued, the banks most of the time don't require you to put much in as long as you're getting a good deal. And so it's kind of like this circle where I keep accumulating equity and cash, but then I can't necessarily deploy it unless I buy things that are overvalued. And that's against my nature. So it's just kind of like a weird little circle, So I don't know. I'm just going to keep letting tenants pay it all down. And something comes across my table that's big enough that I have to do something, then yeah, I would probably refinance and pull it out and roll it into another larger, better deal,
Yeah. How do you find properties undervalued?
Well, I basically find everything through like bankers, through attorneys here, through the real estate agents. I mean, that's my niche. I don't do the mailers or the bandit signs or pay-per-clicks or anything like that. I just advertise to all my Facebook friends pretty hardcore. Like anybody in this area, if they think of buying or selling something that's kind of junky, whether it's apartments or, I probably pop into their mind. I'm pretty obnoxious. Everybody that knows me knows this is what I do. So I get most of my business just from referrals of agents and attorneys and bankers and past clients, my real estate business, my past clients there. So it's a pretty lean business. It doesn't require a great deal of money to do that, which is nice. I've considered trying to ramp things up, doing yellow letters and all that, but I don't know. I don't really want to. I'm just going to keep hammering away at what I'm doing. It's working okay.
Yeah. So 50% LTV, Zach, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of cash flow for you? What are you cash flowing on these?
On my personal portfolio, it's around 26,000 a month, 27,000.
That's net after any repairs and mortgage payments and tax and everything.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Wow, good for you. So it's just been 1-2 properties at a time.
Yeah, literally, it's been the most I bought besides this multifamily deal I just bought. The most I bought at once was 13, and then next to that was 12, and that just happened last year. So it's just really been this slow. I mean, literally buying it and then remodeling it and refinancing and then renting it and then doing it again and again and again. I started to get more confident, and I would see like a 6 package deal, and so I'd be like, oh, let me do that. I can grow quicker. And so, but yeah, it's just been very slow. And, a lot of people, they grow much faster than I have. I mean, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. So I just had to do it in a way that I was comfortable and that I knew how with what I had. And this is just the way I did it,
Right. So any horror stories on your properties? Any bad experiences?
Not really. No, not that I can remember. I mean, I'm pretty realistic. Like, I know things are just going to go bad. Things are going to happen, but it's nothing that, you can't just really write a check to fix, That's the nice thing when they cash flow and you keep everything rented and you run a tight ship and you save your money and you let it pay for itself. It's that kind of stuff just kind of happens. And then you just, you write a check and you forget about it. So no, I don't, not really. I did. I bought 12 units about 3 months ago from a guy. I tried to buy them last year during the pandemic, but we couldn't come together on price. And at the time, it included this old house that was kind of sitting on this property, which was the one thing I didn't like about it the most. I just didn't like the house. It didn't fit, and I just didn't like it. And so anyway, fast forward here, whatever it is, 6 months or 8 months, he calls me back and he's like, hey, I think I'm ready to sell. And I'm like, well, I'm probably not willing to pay what I was willing to pay last year because I was trying to get a deal done for depreciation, and I wanted to help myself out on my taxes, but now that's come and gone. And so I ended up getting them for a better price. Well, the reason he called me was that house this winter, one of the pipes busted and it flooded the crawl space for like an extended period of time, or the basement, and it washed the whole foundation out. And so he ended up having to pay to have the house torn down. And so now the house is gone. So I got it for way cheaper. And the house that I didn't like is gone. But the horror story there is I almost bought it. So I would have had to mess with that like 2 months after the closing had I gone through with that. So that was a horror story that I avoided, thank goodness. But other than that, nothing too bad. I mean, we've only had to evict maybe 5 or 10 people over the last 8 years, which is about the extent of it. And people trash them sometimes, but send the guys in and they fix it and you just kind of move on,
Yeah. So what's the price range you're buying at? How much is one of these homes?
A normal single family. Well, my single families are anywhere from around 75,000 up to about 160. The most expensive one, is about 160, but I've got 80, I bought it for 60 and put 20 in it. And so my basis is 80. That's probably my most expensive one.
Yeah. And of the 100 doors that you have personally, how many are single family?
I would say 25.
25 and the other 75 is multi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and the
right.
75, is that one big complex or a few?
No. I've got around 30 to 35 duplexes that are just scattered all over the city.
Okay.
And then I've got probably 25 houses, a 9-unit and a 4-unit. And so it should add up to a little over 100. And the numbers, that's not exact, but that's like a decent summary of what it looks like.
Sure. So with real estate booming and where prices are on everything right now, does it make you want to sell some of these or any of these or not at all?
Yeah. No, it does. It does. I get calls just about every day from agents trying to offer me the prices for things, that are silly. So yeah, I do. I really do. But I don't know what I would go buy. And when I think about what I like more, do I like the cash flow more, or do I like more cash? Because if I sell them, I have to exchange it. And I'm like, I don't know what I would exchange it into. And I am not going to go overpay for things just to save some taxes. Because then it's like, what's the point, right? If you overpay to save on your taxes, it's like, well, it seems like a lot of effort for not. So yeah, I'm definitely tempted, but I have plenty of cash. So it's like, okay, I sell it and then I put more cash in my pocket to do nothing with. So I always just keep going back to the cash flow because it's really created a lifestyle that I don't have to sell real estate anymore. And, I can travel and I just don't. I work maybe 15 hours a week and then I am bored the rest trying to figure out what the next step is. So it's like, I don't think that selling anything that I have would make any sense at this point,
All right, let's take a quick break from the show and thank Chime for sponsoring this week's episode. No one likes waiting on a paycheck, especially when you've got bills due. So good thing there's Chime. Now you can get your paycheck up to 2 days early with direct deposit. That's up to 2 more days to save, pay bills, and generally just feel good about your money situation. I know sometimes it depends on the bank you use, and oftentimes at my previous job, I would get my direct deposit faster than others, so kind of a weird situation. But Chime is just more about getting paid early. It's also an award-winning mobile app, checking account, debit card, and an optional savings account. So some good services that Chime offers. So what are you waiting for? Hopefully not your paycheck. Get started with Chime today. Applying for a free account takes less than 2 minutes. Get started at chime.com/millionaire. Again, that's chime.com/millionaire. And banking service and debit card provided by the Bank Corp or Stride Bank NA, members FDIC. Early access to direct deposit funds depends on each payer. So thanks again for Chime for sponsoring today's episode.
So you say you moved pretty slowly, but this is all in the last 8 years or so?
Yeah, I bought my first house in 2013.
Okay. So if you're putting, let's just average these out. I mean, these are very rough numbers, but if your average property cost is 110,000, let's say, or 100,000 maybe, and you're putting 50,000 down on each because you're at 50% LTV, times how many? It's 25 homes and 25 duplexes. So let's say 50,000 times 50. That's $2.5 million. So did you have most of that when you started this? That's just money you had saved, or was a lot of that because you had sold properties and had some successes along the way?
No. So I only have about 300,000 of my own money in my portfolio. So everything I buy, like a typical deal that I would buy is like a house. Let's say I would buy it for 50 and I would put 20 into it. So I would have 70 in it. And then I would rent it for probably, let's say, $850. Okay. And then back in the day when I bought it, the house was only worth 90 or 95. So I still had my 25,000 in equity, and then I would burr it. So I would get my money back out of it. So I don't have any money in it. I would cash flow. But then, over the last 8 years, the values go up, so I have 70 in it. Originally it was worth about 90. And then they've gone up to like 110, and now they're at like 130. So a lot of the equity is just when I buy it, and I don't like I said, I only have like maybe 300 grand of my own money.
Yeah, and that's the money you needed to start all of this.
Yeah. That's the money when I was selling a lot of real estate and I didn't know better. I was putting my own money into the down payment and the repairs. Now I don't do that. I do use my money. I use my cash to buy everything, renovate it, but then I refinance. I get all my money back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and you get a nice outdoor porch with birds too.
That's right. I know they're so loud tonight. They're everywhere. It's a beautiful night. If I go inside, the kids are loud. So it's either birds or children. So I don't know.
Yeah, take your pick. Right.
Right. I hope I explained that right as far as like what you were asking me.
No, it's good. I was just kind of thinking, okay, if you started this, you're putting 50,000 in each property, but it sounds, at least when we were talking before, that you sold some along the way too, right? And just kind of kept snowballing that.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Like there's been several deals where I've got I bought a 12 unit last year or the year before last for $99,000. And then I renovated it. I spent $250,000. So I had $350 in it. I held it for a short period of time and then I sold it for $750. And then I exchanged that into a 20 house package. So there's like a lot of this equity is rolled from like just some base hits like houses, and then some larger deals that I've had some good luck with. But it's all very little of my whole portfolio is really my own cash. It's just the early days, for the most part. So but yeah, I've got, about 300, maybe a little less of my own cash in it. Yeah.
Okay. What mistakes have you made along the way?
I think that just lately I've had the biggest realization, and I think it ties into what we were talking about earlier, where I said that, like, I feel like I've built this very slowly. And I guess 8 years is, some would see that as quick, some wouldn't. But I think my mistake was that I was such a loner in the process that I didn't build relationships with people that could have helped me scale faster in different ways. Although I'm pretty happy with being my own partner on my portfolio. Like I prefer that actually. But just this most recent multifamily deal, it's kind of opened my eyes to like, it takes me 8 years to build a portfolio of 100. And it took me 12 days to build a portfolio of, let's say it's 370 with two guys, and that's just because of relationships. So I think my mistake, or what I, would change, would be just being more open with people that are doing the same thing I'm doing instead of being so closed off, just put myself out there more with people, be more open, connect with people on a little deeper level as far as that goes. I think it just would have helped me and helped other people more along the way, but
And if you could point to a couple things that you could say, hey, that's what made me successful. That's what has made me able to do this. And 23, close to $25,000 a month in net cash flow. How have you been able to do that? What would you say are the big drivers?
I would say the two things are being able to identify a good deal and then take it for myself versus let someone else buy it. So that's one thing about me is I know this market where I'm at. I know I can identify opportunity with real estate. So that's the first thing, just learning the craft, and being really good at it. And the other thing is just being able to control expenses and living below my means is the other thing, because you can just sort of sink your own ship. You could have the best, the nicest ship and still sink it if you aren't careful. So I would just say controlling expenses, controlling my personal expenses, living below my means, I guess, would be better. And then identifying opportunities with real estate and then acting on them.
Yeah. How much do you spend a year?
We spend quite a bit now. I probably pay myself around $140,000 a year as a salary. And then we spend probably $75,000 traveling, so some years it's a little more than that. So I would say easily 200,000, but could be 250.
Awesome, Zach. Well, you've done super well. We're looking forward to seeing what you're going to do in the future, what your future plans are, future goals. Before we wrap up here, there's one piece of advice for maybe somebody who really wants to build a real estate portfolio. You mentioned, understanding the deal. Is there a book or a website or a tool that you would recommend somebody get a hold of or be around and utilize?
Yeah, I would say, I think the book that I read that probably changed my mindset the most, and it's done for a lot of people, so it's nothing new, but is Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's what really got me thinking differently about my finances and how I'm going to make money and what I'm going to do with the money. Real estate ended up being my method to do that. But that book, I would say, is what set me on the right path for sure when I was young. So
awesome. That's Zach with a net worth of over $6.5 million. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks for listening to the Millionaires Unveiled podcast with Clark Sheffield and Chase Mattinson. For more stories, investment opportunities, and information, check out our website at millionairesunveiled.com. See you next time when you'll hear from another everyday millionaire.